All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore how William Wordsworth, arguably England's most famous nature poet, ended up writing this breathtaking love letter to the heavily industrialized city of London. We're looking at an absolute masterclass in perspective here, examining a poem that completely challenged the conventional views of its time, and honestly, still resonates today in our own heavily urbanized world.
The whole thing is just a massive paradox, right? I mean, why is a guy who famously ran away to find refuge in the natural beauty of the Lake District, a literal worshiper of nature, suddenly singing the praises of this commercialized, grimy metropolis? It seems entirely out of character for him. This is a poet who usually found his inspiration in daffodils and lonely clouds, definitely not in ships and towers. So what exactly did he see on that early September morning that shifted his perspective so dramatically?
To figure this out, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the poet's urban vision. Second, we'll quickly touch on the Romantic era. Third, we'll break down the Petrarchan sonnet form. Fourth, we'll do a line-by-line analysis of the poem itself. And finally, we will deconstruct a pretty wild hidden twist at the very end.
Okay, part 1. A nature poet's urban vision. Let's set the scene and understand where Wordsworth actually was, both physically and emotionally, when this hit him. Picture this. It's early morning, September 3rd, 1802. Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy are bumping along in a coach, crossing Westminster Bridge right at dawn. They're actually traveling from Charing Cross down to Dover to catch a boat to France. He's taking advantage of a temporary peace treaty to go visit his former lover before returning to England to get married. So it's a journey almost certainly filled with a lot of apprehension. Yet, as Dorothy actually noted in her own journal, the morning was just so pure and bright that the city looked like one of nature's own spectacles. This fleeting, gorgeous moment inspired the poem, though it wouldn't actually hit the presses until 1807.
Moving on to part 2, the Romantic era. We need to quickly ground ourselves in the literary movement that Wordsworth was spearheading.
The Romantic period kicked off around 1798 and ran until about 1832. And this wasn't just some writing trend, It was a profound, fundamental shift in how human beings related to the world. The Romantics treated nature as this living, breathing entity, a primary source of healing and joy. This was a direct, almost aggressive revolt against the cold rationality of the Enlightenment, and even more so against the horrifying growth of industrial slums. They valued raw, spontaneous emotion over mechanization. To really put that into perspective, just compare Wordsworth's super optimistic 6 a.m. snapshot of London with his contemporary, William Blake. Blake represented a much more realist view. He looked at everyday London and saw a bleak, exploited nightmare filled with poverty, child labor, and what he famously called chartered or overly commercialized streets. Wordsworth is looking at the exact same city here, but he's viewing it through a completely different, highly conditional lens. All right, section 3, the Petrarchan sonnet form. Let's look at how Wordsworth physically packaged this unique observation. He went with the incredibly rigid Petrarchan or Italian sonnet form. We're talking a strict 14-line structure, an 8-line opening rhyming AB, 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 followed by a 6-line sestet rhyming CD, CD, CD. But here is the kicker. Historically, this specific format is reserved almost exclusively for love poetry. By choosing this container to describe a massive, grimy industrial hub, Wordsworth is basically winking at his readers right away, implying that this is going to be a very unconventional love letter. Section 4. Line-by-line analysis. Let's dig into the actual text and see exactly how he meticulously builds this awe-inspiring image. He opens up by boldly declaring, "Earth has not anything to show more fair." Basically, there's literally no sight on Earth more beautiful than this. And he doubles down, saying that anyone who could walk past this without noticing would be incredibly boring. He is absolutely commanding our attention right out of the gate. When he throws out that phrase, dull of soul, he's talking about someone completely lacking the poetic imagination to recognize true beauty when it's staring them right in the face. He's actively challenging those realist contemporaries of his, basically saying, you'd have to be completely devoid of imagination to ignore how majestic this urban scene is, regardless of your preconceived notions. Then we get this beautiful personification. This city now doth, like a garment, wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. So the city is literally wearing the morning's beauty like a giant cloak, making it look totally clean and, for a brief moment, completely stripped of its usual noisy, crowded chaos. But hold on, listen to that phrasing again. The city merely
wears the morning like an outfit. It's a really subtle kind of awkward syntax, and it implies that this beauty, it's entirely conditional. That gorgeous garment belongs to the sunrise, to nature, not to the actual man-made metropolis. Once the morning passes, that beautiful garment is going to come right off.
He goes on, ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. He's listing all these massive hubs of commerce, but emphasizing that right now, say at 6 o'clock in the morning before thousands of daily coal fires have been lit, the whole place is magically bright and smokeless. The air is so clear the city just lies wide open to the natural fields surrounding it.
And then, Wordsworth, remember the ultimate worshipper of nature, pulls off something wild. He says, "Never did sun more beautifully steep, in his first splendor valley, rock, or hill, ne'er saw I, never felt, a calm so deep." He is literally elevating this urban sunrise above the most stunning natural landscapes. He emphatically claims he has never experienced such a profound, deep calmness, not even back home in his beloved Lake District.
Next, he looks down at the water. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Referencing the River Thames, he's suggesting that for this one brief moment, the water's just flowing freely of its own accord, completely unbothered by the heavy commercial boats and barges that are going to clog it up in just a few hours.
And again, think about William Blake here. In Blake's poem London, he saw a heavily commercialized, chartered Thames, a river strictly controlled to act as an engine for ruthless industry. But Wordsworth's Thames at this pre-dawn hour, it's totally liberated and natural.
Which brings us to Section 5, Deconstructing the Final Twist. Let's look at the very end of the sonnet and decode a pretty shocking underlying message that flips everything on its head.
The poem hits its climax with this huge exclamatory realization. "Dear God," he says, noting the houses and the mighty commercial heart of London are lying entirely still. It's this image of ultimate, absolute peace.
But here is where the profound ambiguity comes in. Is the city actually asleep, or is it dead? Think about it. When does a mighty heart lie completely still?
Usually, a heart that lies completely still is a dead heart. This final twist reveals a massive conflict between appearance and reality. If the heart is still, the city is fundamentally dead without its people buzzing around. And look at the word lying. It's a brilliant double meaning. Yes, it's resting horizontally, but it's also literally telling a lie. The city is actively deceiving him with this serene, smokeless disguise. Wordsworth knows full well that in just a few short hours, the noise, the poverty, the relentless machinery, it's all coming back. He's praising an illusion.
This whole process actually perfectly captures Wordsworth's own famous definition of his craft. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. He felt that overwhelming, spontaneous awe standing on the cobblestones of Westminster Bridge. But the masterpiece itself wasn't written right there. It was crafted weeks later, taking that intense emotion and meticulously recollecting it in perfect tranquility. So, as we wrap up this explainer, just think about how a simple change of perspective, just catching the light at a different angle, can totally transform an environment. Wordsworth proved that by stripping away the human noise, even the most industrialized, grimy landscape can become a scene of absolute, unarguable majesty. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are we awake enough to see the beauty hiding right beneath the smoke of our own daily lives?